Hey everyone, I'm Ben.
And I'm Ben.
Welcome to part 3 of our conversation about empathy. As always, the links to our other videos are in the description below. Hey man, how are you?
You know what? No, we're not going to even get into that. The last couple of times you have asked me how I was doing, before I had a chance to say anything, you cut me off. So don't even ask me.
Wait, I did?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't remember.
You know, we're not going to worry about whether or not you remember it. We'll talk about this later. Let's get to this empathy discussion and we'll talk. It brings up a really interesting perspective or vantage point, because not a lot of people are willing to go to that place of, okay, so what was it that led him to that place? And I mean, there's a whole lot of things that we can kind of throw out there. We may never know what led to that point. But the truth of the matter is, I don't believe that anybody wakes up, or very few people wake up and be like, today I'm going to kill such and such. And the reason why I'm going to do it is racially motivated or is gender motivated. Some people are that way, but the majority of people are not. And it's one of those things that, again, it goes back to understanding wherever they've come from, whatever their experiences is led them to this moment. And those are the things that have to keep us. That's where empathy comes in. It's not just being caught in the moment, but it's taking that moment and then looking to what got to this place.
I mean, you have to. I mean, just like you said, nobody wakes up like that. The same thing, no police officer joins the force and says, I'm going to join the force just to kill African Americans. That's
Right.
that's my goal. I just want to clean up the streets. You know, I literally just go,
Right.
shoot people, put them in jail. Like that's not someone's goal there. I'm assuming the majority of police officers come in to serve and protect. That's their goal. So what happens from that point where they come in to serve and protect to where, there's some kind of shooting or some kind of incident, like something happened in here. So what happened in here is the question we need to ask. And how can we prevent that? How can we, instead of, this whole abolishing police that people are throwing out there, defunding police, everything that's wrong, like, how do we, I almost want to say, how do we fund the police more so they have a better support system so that when they're in these bad places, these bad areas, mentally, physically, whatever it is in here, like, how do we prevent that and keep those police officers that came in good still good at the end?
Man, I think you're absolutely right when you start talking about, no police officer comes onto the force and has the total intention of saying, I'm going to be the worst cop ever, or I'm going to do something that's going to have the entire nation just angry at me, or going to have the news coming up trying to say, get rid of him, get him out. Nobody comes into a job with the expectation or the goal being, before too long, I want to be fired. Because I did something crazy. And at the same time, on the other end of the spectrum, nobody walks out of their house or goes into a situation saying, I want to be the aggressor today. I want to be something where nobody goes into the day saying, I want to be on the news as being a victim, or I want to be on the news as being someone that went out and started this craziness that's going on. The whole idea of empathy is understanding, okay, we're in this space. We got to this moment, but what happened in the past? What is the background that got us here? If we get to the place where we understand what got us here, and you mentioned it, that's when we start making progress as far as where we need to change. We can't see where we need to change if I can't see things from your perspective. If I see things from your perspective and hear your story and you hear mine, now it's like, oh, okay, so this is what happened to you that got you to this point. Well, let's see what we can do as far as correcting this issue or addressing this issue, so that way there's no way to go forward in this negative down this negative path.
So the next part I'm going to bring up, it's not a popular topic situation, but I think we really need to think about, like, from a police officer's perspective. I mean, their jobs are life and death situations, okay? So the majority of us, we don't know what that's like, okay? So when we're talking about empathy. So, when we talked about the George Floyd situation, they had him, okay? There was 4 police officers, he was in handcuffs. But some of these situations, these police officers are literally getting shot at. They're getting attacked, they're getting ambushed, and we want to group this whole thing. So many African Americans were killed by police this year, and we just want to group everyone together, the just and the unjust. And it's like you can't really do that, because there's so many bad situations with police officers where they're literally, their life is on the line. And you think of our daily jobs. If you have an office job, you're not worried about the printer at work shooting at you, taking your life, or if you're a cook or anything that the grill's gonna jump out and try to like take your life, or something's gonna attack you. It's like the majority of us don't understand that. We don't know what that feels like. So I feel like a lot of us jump to a lot of conclusions with police officers and say, well, I would have done this in that situation, or I would have done that in that situation.
Yeah.
Really? Would you have done that in that situation?
Right.
I value life just as much as everyone else, and there's many police officers that value life just as much as everyone else. But when you're put in a life or death situation, like, I could not imagine what I would do or how I would react, because I've never been put in that situation before. And no matter how much some of these police officers have trained, you're not actually going to know what it feels like until you're put into that situation.
Exactly. And you won't know until you're right in that situation. One of the things that I have, one of my uncles was or used to be a state highway patrolman, and he was telling us this story as far as one of his there was one of the patrolmen that he was working with on this particular, he got a phone call. Basically got one of those radio calls where it's like, hey, we pulled somebody over. And the next thing he hears is, hey, shots fired. And my uncle's like, oh my goodness, let's hurry up and get here, because we got, a shooting in progress. And one of the things, and he said situation, they got everything under control. And he said what was crazy was when he was speaking to the officer that was on scene, he said when he asked him what happened, like when shots were fired, what did you do? He said, basically because I wanted to find out if he went to his training, if he knew what he was supposed to be doing, how he was supposed to handle the situation. He said he wanted to make sure, just in case he had to go back into training, and so my uncle had us. It wasn't a funny situation, but he had us laughing to the extent that he said the officer's first response was, I'm getting shot at, and he took off running. He said, and then it was like, wait a minute, I'm getting shot at, and I'm an officer. I actually have to pursue.
Right.
And so what was crazy was the fact that he said that he said that. And it goes to one of the things that we talk about in doing some different trainings where I work, is like when we're in those heightened situations, we quickly revert back to what we've always known. For most people, if you hear gunshots, you're either hitting the ground or you're taking off running. And so it's putting yourself in that situation to where, like you were saying, we can sit back all day and be like, man, if I was in that situation, here's what I would. The truth of the matter is, until you're in that situation, you don't know what you're going to do. And it goes both ways.
Well, I think we'll probably talk about this in another video. We won't get into it too much, but I think that's where we have to question too, like, you don't know a situation until you're in it, but I think we do need to look at, like, what kind of training that they get. I know I mentioned that a little bit before, but I just keep thinking about that. Like, what kind of training do police officers get? I know they do like a shoot, no shoot, but it's just such a crazy situation to think about, to be in it. And these are things we have to be thinking about for change. What do African American people feel like? What do white people feel like? What do police officers feel like when they're in certain situations?
Hey everyone, thank you for watching part 3 of our conversation on empathy. We invite you to subscribe to the channel, like the video, as well as share the video with everyone that you know. We'd love to also hear your comments. Write some comments in the section below so we can know what conversations you would like us to have.
Also, if you haven't, check out in our description, we have a store. There's a lot of great merchandise in there. Make sure you check that out. And as always, thanks so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.